After 70, peace becomes precious, and so does dignity. You have lived more than 7 decades in this world. You have loved through grief, worked through exhaustion, endured losses that carved you to the bone, and kept moving anyway. You survived things that would have undone a smaller version of you. And yet here you are, still breathing, still aware. But there is something no one warned you about. Disrespect after 70 rarely announces itself. It does not shout. It accumulates instead, in silences, in half-smiles, in rooms where your voice trails off and no one follows it, in the way someone checks their phone while you are speaking, in the way a decision gets made around you, not with you, in the way certain people speak to you now as though the years have made you smaller rather than deeper. You did not survive this long to be quietly diminished. Tonight we sit with something real. Buddhism teaches compassion, but compassion does not mean self-erasure. Tonight, we gently uncover 8 forms of disrespect you should never tolerate again. Not with anger, with clarity, because clarity, it turns out, is where true freedom begins. The weight you were never supposed to carry. Before we name the 8, something must be said clearly, because if we skip it, everything that follows will be misunderstood. There is a story our culture tells about growing older. It moves so quietly that most people absorb it without ever choosing to. The story goes like this. You have had your chapter. Now you step back. Now you need less. Ask for less. Occupy a smaller portion of the room. You become grateful for whatever attention reaches you. You stop being the subject of the conversation and start being the backdrop of it. You make yourself easier to be around. Smaller, less trouble. And because this story never announces itself, because it lives in the texture of daily moments rather than in any single confrontation, good people, generous people, patient people begin to believe it. They stop naming what hurts. They swallow what should have been spoken. They absorb, slowly, across years, a posture of diminishment that was never the truth of who they are. I want to hold something against that story. The Buddha did not teach self-abandonment. He taught non-attachment. These are not the same thing, and the difference matters enormously. Non-attachment means releasing the grip of wounded pride, of the need to be right, of the ego that demands recognition at every turn. It does not mean handing your dignity over quietly and hoping someone returns it eventually. Non-attachment liberates you from clinging. It does not ask you to let yourself be erased. There is a teaching told as a story about a river. A young monk came to his teacher, troubled by a question that would not leave him alone. He said, "A river gives itself completely, bending around every stone without resistance, yielding to every obstacle without complaint. Should I not be the same, offering no resistance to whatever life brings me?" The teacher considered this for a long time, longer than was comfortable. Then he said, "Yes, but notice something the river also does. It does not disappear. It still arrives at the sea." That is what we are holding tonight. Not hardness, not bitterness, not the decision to become closed or armored against the world and the people we love inside it. Simply the refusal to disappear. Simply the choice to remain fully, dignifiedly present. The first form, being talked down to. Let me describe a scene that I suspect you know from the inside, because you have lived inside it more than once. You are at a doctor's appointment, or a family gathering, or a shop you have been visiting for years, and someone younger than you, perhaps by 2 or 3 decades, begins to explain something. They speak slowly. They choose simple words. They use that particular tone, patient and bright and somewhat loud, that communicates they believe they are being helpful. And what they are explaining with such careful, deliberate clarity is something you have understood for so long that it no longer even feels like knowledge. It simply feels like obvious truth, the kind that lives in you the way breathing does. They are not being cruel. That is the precise and particular difficulty of this form of disrespect. They believe they are being considerate, and that well-meaning condescension, that cheerful assumption that your age has softened your understanding, lands like water working on stone. You do not notice the erosion in any single moment, but it is happening. Age is not incompetence. Let that sentence find its place in you. You have navigated more genuine complexity in a single decade of your life than many younger people will encounter in their entirety. You have made decisions under real pressure, not the managed kind that comes with safety nets and support systems and time to reconsider, but the raw kind where the consequences lived entirely in your life and no one else's. You have loved through grief that had no clean resolution. You have rebuilt what collapsed. You have held uncertainty without being destroyed by it. You have done all of this without ceremony, across a span of years that is impossible to convey to someone who has not yet arrived there. And yet the moment someone perceives grey in your hair or slowness in your step, something shifts in them. The vocabulary they use simplifies. The tone softens in a way that is not kindness. It is condescension wearing kindness as a very convincing costume. In the Buddhist tradition, right speech is one of the pillars of the Eightfold Path. Right speech is not only about the content of what comes out of the mouth, it is about the texture of language, the assumption embedded in tone, the way a particular choice of words can either honor or diminish the person receiving them. When someone speaks to you as though age has reduced your capacity for understanding, they are practicing wrong speech, even when their voice stays gentle throughout the entire exchange. Here is a story that has stayed with me. A senior monk was once being instructed on a monastery matter by a monk several decades younger. The senior monk listened fully, without interruption, and when the younger monk had finished, simply said, "Thank you," and continued his work. A student who had witnessed this asked afterward, "Did it not disturb you?" The senior monk smiled. He said, "A mountain does not become smaller because someone has forgotten how tall it is. Wisdom does not need to shout, but it deserves recognition. Your micro-practice for this one is the quality of that mountain. The next time someone explains to you what you already know, the next time that careful, slowing tone arrives in a conversation, do not defend yourself. Do not recite your history or fill the silence with credentials or try to prove anything at all. Simply look at them with calm, unhurried eyes and say, 'I understand.' 2 words. Steady, not wounded, not cold, not performing anything, just utterly and completely grounded. Let the stillness of that response settle in the room. Sometimes the quietest answer carries the most authority. A mountain does not need to announce how tall it is, it simply stands. The second form. Your time. Being treated as unimportant. There is a particular cruelty that accumulates damage slowly, across months and years, without ever appearing in a single dramatic moment. The appointment cancelled with no warning. The family member who arrives an hour late and moves past it without acknowledgement because the assumption has settled, without anyone choosing it explicitly, that your schedule is soft, your hours available, your day flexible in ways that other people's simply are not. The friend who postpones again and again because something always comes up that is more pressing. and your time is the one that yields without requiring an explanation. The visit that never quite happens because you are assumed to be waiting, which means there is no urgency to actually arrive. Retirement does not make your hours less valuable. The morning you had planned, the particular energy you set aside for a certain hour, the simple act of expecting someone at the time they said they would arrive, these things are real. They matter in ways that deserve to be named. When someone treats your time as endlessly negotiable, as something that bends without cost to fit their convenience, they are saying something they may never put into words. That your days are somehow less specific than theirs, that your hours are a waiting room rather than a life. The Buddha spoke about mindful living as the practice of genuinely honoring each moment. And honoring your own time is not selfishness. It is the recognition that these hours are finite, that each one spent in unnecessary waiting or accommodation is an hour that will not return. To be careless with another person's time is to treat their life as less real than your own. And you have lived long enough to know, with precision, that this is not a small thing. I have spoken with many people in their 70s and 80s who carry some version of the same quiet ache. They describe it in different words, but the feeling underneath is always the same. Nobody asks anymore. They just assume I will adjust. And the sadness in that sentence is not really about inconvenience. It is about mattering, about being a specific and real presence in someone's life, rather than a flexible space in their calendar that can be moved without consequence. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. And clarity is always the beginning of something better. Your micro-practice is one sentence, spoken once, without elaboration, without apology. When someone cancels without warning, when someone arrives late and moves past it without acknowledgement, you say, simply and without accusation, please let me know earlier next time. Not a lecture, not a reckoning, just a quiet line drawn in the ground that says your time has weight and you expect it to be treated as such. Plant the seed. You do not need to stand over it, but plant it. And let it stand as evidence, to yourself as much as to them, that your hours carry weight in this world. The third form, dismissing your feelings. You share something that has been sitting in you, a worry that arrived in the quiet hours of the night and did not leave by morning, a hurt that has not resolved the way you thought it would when you first allowed yourself to feel it. Something troubling enough, real enough, that you trusted another person with it. And the response comes quickly, with a kind of confident ease, dressed as care. You are too sensitive. It is not really a big deal. You know you should learn to let these things go. And what strikes you, if you allow yourself to notice it, is how fast those words arrive, as though they were already prepared, as though the fact that you shared something difficult is itself the problem that needs solving, rather than the difficult thing itself, as though your emotional experience is a malfunction to be corrected, rather than a truth to be met with any genuine care. Think about what that does to a person over time. When your feelings are consistently minimized, you begin to doubt them before they have a chance to teach you anything. You start to pre-edit your inner life before you even open your mouth. You learn to present only the feelings that will be acceptable, the ones that will not require anything of the people around you. And slowly, without noticing the moment it happened, you lose access to your own interior world, because you have learned that it is not safe to bring it into the room. Minimizing another person's feelings is a form of control. It does not look like control. It wears the language of perspective and practical wisdom and wanting to help you feel better and move forward. But beneath the surface of those reassuring phrases lives a quiet insistence that your interior experience must be revised before it will be acceptable. That what you feel is only valid once it has been trimmed to a more comfortable size for the person in front of you. The Buddha placed awareness at the very foundation of all practice. Not only awareness of the external world and its constant arising and passing, but awareness of your own interior life. The capacity to notice what you are feeling, to stay with it without immediately trying to escape it or justify it or minimize it into silence, is not weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. When someone tells you that what you feel is too much, they are asking you to be less aware, not more. They are asking you to practice a kind of deliberate numbness and call the result peace. But numbness is not peace. It is pain, with the lights turned off. Your feelings are real. Your inner life does not require anyone else's agreement to be true. Your micro-practice is 3 words. When your feelings are dismissed, when you are told you are too sensitive or need to simply move on, do not argue. Do not defend or explain or present evidence for your own experience. Simply look at them, steadily and without apology, and say, "It matters to me." Not as an argument, as a fact. A quiet statement about who you are and what you carry. That simple sentence rests on your own ground and asks nothing from them. It cannot be argued with because it is not asking for agreement. It is simply, quietly, irreversibly true. The 4th form, treating you as financial backup. This one requires the most care in the naming, because it lives so close to love that the two can feel impossible to separate. Generosity is one of the most beautiful things a human being can practice. Many of you have given across decades in ways that were never counted, because counting was not the point. You funded futures that have now become someone else's present. You opened your home and your savings and your time and your energy, and you did it from love that was genuine and that built real things in the lives of the people you cared for most. But there is a clear and significant difference between giving and being assumed upon. When the call arrives only because something is needed, when your presence is most warmly welcomed when it brings resources with it, when you sense, in the particular pressure of a request or the quality of a silence following your hesitation, that saying no would alter the temperature of the relationship in ways that feel too costly to risk. Something essential has shifted. The giving is no longer free. It has become an obligation installed so gradually and so gently that you may not have noticed the installation at any single moment. Only the weight of it, accumulated over years, makes itself known. The Buddha was specific about this. True generosity arises from freedom. It is an act of genuine choice, unforced by guilt or fear, or the quiet threat of love withdrawn. When giving happens because the room leaves no comfortable space for the word no, the giving has lost the quality that made it generosity. What remains is something closer to extraction, even when everyone in the room believes it to be love. Generosity offered freely is a gift. Generosity extracted by expectation is something else entirely, and you are allowed to know the difference. You are allowed to feel the difference in your body before you even form the words to name it. You are allowed to say no, not with a tally of what you have already given, not with an inventory of grievance, simply with the steady knowledge that your resources belong first to your own well-being, and that a gift offered from genuine freedom is worth more to everyone than a gift offered from the quiet fear of what refusal might cost. Your micro-practice is a pause. Before you answer, before yes forms automatically, because yes avoids the discomfort of no, simply stop. Let the silence be there. Silence is not cruelty. It is the space in which a real answer can arrive, one that comes from genuine willingness rather than reflexive accommodation. That space has always belonged to you. You simply forgot you were allowed to inhabit it. The fifth form: ignoring your experience. You were present for things these people only know as photographs or stories or entries in textbooks. You have watched the world remake itself across decades, not from a distance, but from inside the remaking. You carry knowledge that took 70 years to accumulate, the kind that cannot be compressed into a weekend or downloaded in an afternoon. It arrives only through the slow, patient accumulation of living through things, of making mistakes and recovering from them, of losing what mattered and somehow continuing anyway. It is the knowledge of what actually holds and what does not, of who people reveal themselves to be when things become genuinely difficult, of which values survive the long arc of a life, and which ones turn out to have been decorations. And sometimes you open a page of that knowledge in conversation. You offer something from the library you have spent a lifetime filling, something earned at a cost the person sitting across from you has not yet paid. And you watch as the eyes in front of you drift slightly, or the response comes with that particular polite efficiency that means the words arrived but found no one genuinely home to receive them. Or someone nods in that specific way that means they have already moved on inside their head while their face is still performing interest. It is one of the quieter disappointments of growing older, not a dramatic rejection. Just the small, recurring realization that what you carry is not always welcomed with the seriousness it deserves. Right speech, the Buddha taught, includes right listening. Receiving another person's experience with genuine attention is itself a spiritual practice. It requires something real of the listener, a willingness to slow down, to let another person's truth arrive fully before your own response begins forming. When that quality is absent, when your decades are moved past like furniture someone is navigating around on their way somewhere else, you cannot manufacture genuine reception. You cannot force another person to truly receive you, but you can refuse to run after your own words. You can refuse to make the story smaller, to make it easier for someone else to hold. There is a teaching I return to when I think about this. The Buddha said that the gift of truth is the highest gift. Not the gift of flattery or agreement, but the gift of what is actually true. Your experience, what you have genuinely lived through and genuinely learned, is a form of truth. Offering it is an act of generosity, and, like all acts of generosity, it does not require the recipient to recognize its value in order for the offering to have been real. Share what you have to share, once, fully, without apology. Speak it as though it deserves to be heard, because it does. And if it lands and is received, let that nourish you. And if it passes without landing, do not make it smaller next time. What you know is real, whether or not it is acknowledged in this room on this particular day. The library stands, patient and full, whether or not anyone opens the door. Experience is earned. It does not need to be chased with validation. The sixth form: making decisions for you without asking. Perhaps you have noticed this arriving the way a season arrives. Without a single moment you can identify as the turning point. Decisions about your living situation, your medical care, your daily schedule, the plans being made around the years ahead, presented to you already complete, built around you, carefully and with love, but without you. And the people who built them love you genuinely. They use phrases like, "We just want to make sure you are okay," and they mean it. The care is real, and you know it is real, And that makes this particular form of disrespect the most complicated to name. But inside the love is an assumption that was never agreed to. The assumption that your judgment has grown uncertain enough that it is more efficient, more protective even, to decide first and explain afterward. That looking after you means removing the question rather than bringing it to you. That your voice in the conversation about your own life has become, quietly and without announcement, something optional. Consider what that actually feels like from the inside. You arrive at a conversation and discover that something significant has already been arranged. The appointment has been scheduled, the visit has been planned, the arrangement has been made, and you are being told, not consulted. You are the subject of the planning, but not a participant in it. And the people presenting this to you look pleased with themselves because they believe they have done something kind. They have. And yet, the Buddha understood that autonomy is inseparable from dignity, the capacity to direct your own life, to be consulted rather than managed, to make real choices about things that are genuinely yours to decide, is not something you outgrow the way you outgrow a shoe size. It is connected to who you are in a way that cannot be separated from it. When someone removes that capacity from you, even with hands full of love, they diminish something essential. Something that no amount of care, however well-intentioned, can replace. Protection becomes disrespect when it removes your voice. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. You are still here, still thinking, still moving through your days with awareness and will and the full weight of your own life behind you. That means you deserve to be asked. Your micro-practice is a sentence that may need to be spoken more than once, in more than one conversation, with more than one person who loves you. When something has been decided about your life without your voice in the room, look at them calmly and say, "I would like to decide that myself." Not as accusation, not as rejection of their love, simply as a clear statement of fact about who you still are. The seventh form, mocking your pace or limitations. It does not always arrive as cruelty. Often it comes wearing the face of impatience or of teasing that wants to pass for affection. The sigh that is almost hidden. The tone that implies you are holding things up. The small comment, delivered lightly, that carries a sting inside it that the speaker may not even notice they delivered. You are too slow. You do not get it. These things are sometimes said directly. More often, they live in the particular energy that fills a room when your pace becomes visible and someone has decided that pace is an inconvenience. But you feel them either way. And feeling them is not oversensitivity. It is accurate perception of something real. Think for a moment about what slowness actually means. Not in the way our culture defines it, as a deficiency, as something fallen behind, but in its actual nature, slowness is not weakness. In many of the things that matter most in a human life, slowness is not a limitation at all. It is where understanding lives. The person who moves through life at speed sees the broad outline. The person who moves more slowly begins to see the texture, the specific detail, the thing that only reveals itself to someone who has stayed present long enough to let it come into focus. The quick mind scans the surface. The slow, patient mind goes beneath it. A craftsperson who rushes produces work. A craftsperson who moves with care and attention produces something that lasts. The difference is not a difference in intelligence or capability. It is a difference in relationship to time and to the thing being made. You have developed, across 70 years, a relationship to time that cannot be replicated by speed. Your pace is not a failure of your former self. It is the natural movement of a mind that has learned what actually deserves attention. The Buddha walked. He was not known for urgency. The whole quality of how he moved through the world was itself a teaching, a demonstration that depth and patience are companions, that the most important things do not come to those who rush, but to those who remain present long enough for understanding to arrive on its own terms. He did not apologize for this. He did not explain it or justify it. He simply moved at the pace his wisdom required. You do not owe anyone an apology for existing at the rhythm your life now requires. Do not rush to prove yourself when impatience reaches you. Do not accelerate in response to someone else's restlessness. Stay at your own pace. Let the steadiness of how you move be your answer. Depth moves more slowly than speed, and depth always, in the end, has the last word. The eighth form, emotional neglect. This is the one that lives in the deepest silence, and because it lives there, in the place where nothing is ever said outright, it may be the most painful of all 8 to carry quietly through the years. Nobody asked how you were, not the way you needed to be asked, not the kind of asking where the person actually waits, where there is enough stillness between you for the honest answer to have room to arrive. Nobody noticed the weight you were carrying through a particular week. Nobody followed up after the hard appointment, or the sleepless stretch of nights, or the moment when something shifted inside you and you sat with it alone because no one around you thought to ask what was happening. Not because they are unkind, but because somewhere over time, without a conversation that established it, the assumption formed. You are managing, you are fine. People who have lived as long as you have developed the capacity to carry things quietly, and that quiet is simply part of how things are now. And so you carry them quietly, and the quiet grows heavier with each passing week that brings no genuine wondering about how you are. There is something that happens to a person who is consistently unseen over a long period of time. It is not always dramatic. From the outside, it does not always look like suffering, but inside, something begins to close. A reluctance forms around sharing what is actually true, because experience has quietly taught that the honest answer will likely pass unreceived, so you offer the acceptable version of yourself instead, the version that requires nothing from the room. And over time, without choosing to, you lose easy access to your own honesty because bringing it out has stopped feeling worth the cost. This is what emotional neglect does across months and years, and it deserves to be named. Being unseen is among the most profound forms of disrespect that exists, precisely because it never announces itself. It does not arrive in a single moment. It accumulates across ordinary days, in the small, repeated absence of being genuinely wondered about, in the slow realization that your interior life has become something the people around you assume rather than ask about, that you have become, in their understanding of things, someone who no longer needs to be checked on. Every being longs to be acknowledged. The Buddha understood this with extraordinary and specific tenderness. Not celebrated or praised or placed at the center of attention, simply seen, recognized as present and real, and worth another person's genuine curiosity. This longing does not diminish with age. If anything, experience deepens it, because you have lived long enough to understand how genuinely rare it is to be truly met by another person. There is a Zen teaching I have carried for many years. A student once asked a master, "What is the most compassionate thing one person can offer another?" The student expected an answer about sacrifice or generosity or wisdom. The master was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, "Look at them. Really look. Let them feel they have been seen. That is all, and that is everything." Your micro-practice here is not passive. Begin to seek, with real intention, the spaces and relationships where presence is mutual, where someone asks how you are and waits for the honest answer, where there is enough warmth and enough quiet for truth to become possible between you, and begin, gradually and without making it dramatic, to spend less of your finite time in spaces where your presence passes through unnoticed, where you could leave and no one would feel the specific shape of your absence. You are not obligated to attend every room that does not notice when you leave. The reframe that changes everything. Before the close, something must be said directly, because it is too important to leave in the space of implication. Buddhism is sometimes misread in conversations like this one. People hear words like compassion, patience, acceptance, non-attachment, and they build from those words a spiritual instruction to endure, to absorb, to return again and again to what diminishes them, because anything else might not be sufficiently enlightened. This is not what the Dharma teaches. It is a misreading, and it matters to be clear. Non-attachment means releasing the grip of wounded pride. It does not mean surrendering your dignity in order to keep peace in a room. Compassion does not require that you accept being harmed in order to demonstrate you feel it for those who cause harm. Patience is a strength, yes, but patience with the inevitable difficulties of a human life, not an open-standing invitation for ongoing disrespect. Dignity is quiet, but quiet dignity does not bow to contempt. Knowing the difference between those two things is itself a form of practice. Boundaries are not walls. A wall closes the world away entirely. A boundary simply marks what belongs inside your life and what does not. It does not require anger. It requires clarity, and the courage to hold that clarity steady even when it makes someone else uncomfortable. This is not bitterness. This is clarity, and you are allowed to live from it. What you choose from here. We have walked through 8 forms of disrespect tonight. Being spoken to as though age has made you less. Having your time treated as endlessly available. Having your feelings dismissed. Being used as financial backup. Having your experience ignored. Having decisions made about your life without your voice. Being mocked for your pace. And moving through days where no one truly wonders how you are. Each of these is real. Each has a name now. You cannot set down a weight you have never agreed to call a weight. After 70 years, you do not need to fight. You do not need to raise your voice or explain your worth to people who should already understand it. You simply need to stand still and refuse what diminishes you. Picture it not as confrontation, but as posture. A person standing upright, not rigid, not cold, simply not folding, refusing to make themselves smaller to fit someone else's comfort, breathing slowly, moving at their own pace, standing in the quiet certainty of who they are. Peace without dignity is fragile, but peace with self-respect, built from the inside, resting on what you know about yourself, that peace belongs entirely to you. No one gave it. No one can take it. Release what was never yours to carry. Soften toward yourself in the places you have been too hard for too long. Return to the quiet knowledge of who you are. You did not survive all of this to disappear. You survived to be here, fully, in whatever time remains, awake and dignified, and quietly, unshakably yourself. Which form of disrespect will you no longer tolerate? Let that question rest in you, and if this conversation named what you have been quietly carrying, share it with someone who needed to hear it, because dignity multiplies when you offer it to one another.